Hey, everybody. Welcome to an all-new edition of House Calls, the podcast. Tonight, Ty and I are continuing our summer artist series. We've spoke to Clever, who's a painter and tattoo artist. Tonight, we get to be graced by Philip Bermingham. Philip is a portrait photographer. He's taken pictures of the royal family, Carl Weathers, the Waldron family, and if you ask me, he's probably his Waldron family, then Carl Weathers, then Daryl Green, then the royal family. Ty, are you ready?
I am ready. I'm excited. I was thinking about this, and the Carl Weathers thing brings it up, as we had an offline conversation about, isn't this a health and wellness and orthopedic kind of podcast? And I've been thinking about it, and I'm like, you know what? Before you get into health and wellness, you got to kind of have the why, and the why is your passion. So we're talking to people who are passionate, and we're trying to inspire other people to be like, it doesn't have to always be mainstream. Like, I don't think you and I ever thought growing up, hey, maybe we should be a photographer,
Yeah.
And the way I put it is, there's some people out there who are Rocky at the beginning of Rocky 1. They just don't have a purpose. They don't know what they want to do. And then there's the middle-aged person. That's like Rocky and Rocky 3, where he's been to the top and he's just gotten too civilized and he doesn't know what to do. And then there's Rocky 6, which is called Rocky Balboa, where he's older and he's still got some stuff in the basement. So we're trying to say, hey, there's a lot of people with passion out there who can be great examples to all of us.
So you're saying we are Rocky 6?
We're Rocky 7. We're taking it to a whole new level. Rocky the podcast.
Oh my God. Look out, world. Look out, Clever Lang. And you know what? Just get ready. I like that. I mean, we can use our walkout songs and the all new Rocky. There's a lot of things we can do with this. And
I like your new radio voice. I feel like you're trying the casual, I'm a cool guy, Matt.
Yeah. How's that working out for you?
It's great for right now, but it's not going to last the whole weekend. I know that.
No chance.
All right. I'll see you in the podcast.
Yep. Look forward to it. Everyone, welcome to a new edition of House Calls, the podcast. We're continuing our summer artist series. With tonight, we've got Philip Bermingham. Philip is a photographer, portrait photographer to be exact, and he's already won the award for the best background that we've seen here on the podcast. Philip, thanks for making the time to talk to us.
My pleasure.
This is great. Ty, we'll ask some questions at some point, but I try to keep Ty quiet as long as I can and get in everything I need to get into without him cutting me off, which he will do.
First interruption. We got to ask him where he is. Where are you?
This is Bermuda, and behind me is the sound, and it's just beautiful temperature. Just played golf, and it's a pretty nice place to be right now.
Absolutely. Where did you play today?
Mid-Ocean Club.
Great. Ty, that's a really nice course.
I do have a story about Mid-Ocean Club because I have played there, believe it or not. The first time my wife ever played golf, I played there with my parents, and they put her in golf shoes, and we had caddies, and she'd never played golf before, and her feet got such bad blisters, she played the last 9 barefoot.
Oh, boy.
That's about right.
Yep. We'll fix that next time she comes, okay?
Yes. That was 30 years ago, and she hasn't played golf since.
Oh, boy.
But as I was saying, Philip is a portrait photographer, and besides taking pictures of the Waldron family, he's best known for doing a lot of the royal family. Ty's very interested in the Carl Weathers photography and Daryl Green as well.
Oh, okay.
So we've got a lot to get into.
Yeah.
So
I did a book on portraits, and it's called Philip Birmingham on the Job. And the on the job is a reference to when I was a police officer. If you were a police officer, you're on the job, and so
right.
Nod to my colleagues there. And the earliest photograph in that book was the one of Carl Weathers, which I did in Bermuda, and he'd just come down to Bermuda. It was the year after the Rocky movie came out, where he played Apollo Creed, and so he. I met him at a dinner party one night, and it was a boxing group there. It was the police boxing team were there, and I was fortunately not on that team. But I said, "Look, do you want to do a portrait session?" He said, "Sure." So I photographed him down at Admiralty Cove, and when I did the photographs, I got them back, and they looked kind of like flat and just lifeless, and
right.
I didn't really sort of look at them again until I came to get the book, and I dug the negatives out and I scanned them, and I thought they were incredible. The colors were so intense. And I thought, oh my God, I thought this had kind of been a lost sort of session, but it turned out it's in the book, and popular item with the ladies there. It was the guy's a bit of a stud, And,
Yeah.
But it was a great session. He's a great guy, and that was the oldest show. I've got the book here actually, but if I flip through the pages, it'll probably take me 20 minutes to find. I'll just casually look for it while you're talking. So
tie some of the pictures from the book as well. And just so you know, Rocky and the Rocky franchise is Ty's favorite movie, and he quotes it
really
a couple times a day.
I quote it all the time, and it's funny. When I went through your pictures, that's the first one I sent to Matt was Carl Weathers, and the second one was Daryl Green.
Well, Daryl was a great guy too. I got to say, Daryl was one of the nicest guys I've met, and his wife was a force. She was the power behind the throne. I photographed the three kids on a regular basis. They're all grown up now, but it was just a fabulous time with them. And I was doing the session one day, and the Washington Post were doing a Star Section article on me, and I just happened to have their kids in that day. And they were kind of wild, they were just like totally sort of like odds, they were out of control. And I had to put one of them in timeout in the corner, and he said, I'm ready. Can I come back now, please? But Jill was a gem. And what happened was, Jill came to me and said, look, Daryl's got a Youth Life Foundation, and we're trying to raise money for him. And we're going to do a calendar. And we're going to do a calendar of the Redskins. And it's an offense and a defense team. And I didn't know anything about football. I didn't know what offense, defense was. And I got to photograph 23 families from the Redskins. I did all the families, and then we did this calendar. And Daryl was in both the calendars.
Oh.
And it was a great money, fundraiser, and it was just so much fun with these guys. Not one of them was on time. I don't know how they make the game. Every one of them was late for the portrait session. But they're all great fun to be with. And I kind of think I had a huge advantage that I wasn't into football. So they're so used to being lauded, and they just have everyone sort of wants a piece of them and all that kind of thing. And I said, when I first met Daryl, I said, oh, so how long have you been playing baseball? And he just shook his head. We had a great rap, and the kids were just great.
So, Phil, I know a lot of your story, but how did you get to photography? How did you get to Bermuda? Because I don't think you were born there.
No, I was born in England, in Cheshire, and I actually joined the Liverpool Police, and I was 16. I joined the cadet program, and after 3 years, I graduated to the regular force, and after 2 years of that, I saw an advertisement for police officers in Bermuda, and it was about 2.5 times the salary I was getting in Liverpool. It was weather was just fantastic, so I applied, and I didn't, I just thought this was a great idea. It was, I thought it was a 5-year contract. I thought I'd just go out there and, just try for 5 years, and I was accepted. And once I got there, I just, wow, this is a beautiful place. So I just went to a medical class. I got a little Canon camera, a little rangefinder camera, and that was how I got started. And the guy who was giving the class didn't really like policemen, and there was three of my buddies. We all took this class together, and he just didn't have any time for me at all. And after about a couple of lessons, he said, you might as well just give it up. You're never going to be a photographer. And that was my first motivational speech. So I just pursued it, got another camera, and I just loved doing it. And
police officer, something you dreamed about when you were little, or was it something that you fell into?
Well, I was always interested. I had a feeling that as you were really doing it's part of a community, and you're doing things for the community. And it was, it was a town I lived out. It was outside Liverpool in Cheshire, and I went to school in that rural grammar school, and it was it's something that I thought this is a good thing to do, But the cadet program broadened my life tremendously, because what happened was you were a cadet till you couldn't be a regular officer till you were 19. So a lot of kids left school at 16, and then they go off somewhere else. So they lose the opportunity to hire those people. So they retained the cadets by giving them a program. I went back to college with the cadet program. I also went to Israel and worked on a kibbutz. And That was all part of the program. I applied to this job, and they let me go, and they paid me while I was there. And then I went and worked in London, in a youth club in London for 3 months as well. So it was really broadened your outlook on life. So I went outside of Liverpool and just saw different places. But when I went to Israel, that gave me that was what prompted the Bermuda thing. I wanted to see more of the world, and you don't see that in Liverpool too much, you know.
When you were in Liverpool as a teenager, were there any good bands or anything that the
Man,
kids listened to?
Okay, so our police station, it was Copper's Hill, and it was right by the Empire Theatre, which is all the shows would come there. It was a fantastic. One night we had Tom Jones was performing there, and what they did, they snuck him out the back door, and the guys just brought him up to the police station. He had his regular car was parked in the back of the police station. And the guys were teasing him because he had perfume on him. He said it wasn't me. He said it's all the women who were grabbing him when he was on the show there and all that. But there was of course the Beatles I was there for the Beatles, and that was just fantastic.
That must have been a wild time.
When I was in Israel, there was all these American girls were there, and I had a Liverpool accent, and it was just like, oh my God, you sound like the Beatles. So I milked that for a bit, Yeah.
Did you ever see the Beatles around town, or ever do security for any of their shows?
No, I never actually bumped into him. But my brother Colin is a photographer as well, and he spent 6 months with me, and then went back and started his own studio in Liverpool. And he was a mate of Mike McCarthy, Paul's brother. And so my brother was trying to get Paul's photograph. He was trying to get him to set up Paul was married to Linda McCartney, who was quite a prominent photographer herself.
Right.
So Colin said, any chance you can get us a session with Paul? And he says, hey, Cal, there's only one photographer in our family, and it ain't you. so that's the sense of
cutthroat business.
No, it's tough, tough out. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So you get to Bermuda, you take that photography class, and the instructor didn't seem to love you. What inspired you to jump into it?
Well, once I got the bug, that was it. I just it was a beautiful place, and then I started taking my friends' photographs, and I did their kids' photographs, and then I was on the board of the Bermuda Lawn Tennis Association. I did the PR for them, and I got a call from Walter Summer, who was the president of Princess Hotels, and about doing some coverage for the. This was just happenstance. That he wanted photographs of Jimmy Connors and Eli Nastasi, who were visiting professionals, and they came down to Bermuda, and he asked me to photograph them while they were there. And these guys were comedians. They were just hamming it up, and they were pretending that they didn't know me, and they'd climb out in the stands and shaking the rackets at me because I was making too much noise with my camera. And there was all part of the show, and they were bad boys at the time. And after the 4 days, we were just following around. I took him the photographs to Walter Summer, and I showed him. He says, "What do I owe you?" And I said, "Well, I've never done this before, so I didn't know. I was kind of naive about it. Didn't know what to charge." And he wrote me a check for $600, which in 1973 was a month and a half salary as a police officer. I thought I could do this professionally. So that was my first gig. I ended up doing a whole bunch of other tennis players as well.
That's amazing. Your first gig is Jimmy Connors.
Yeah, I didn't know what I really didn't know what I was doing. I was winging it. It was like
when Ty and I started this podcast, it was supposed to be more of like a wellness kind of podcast. And Ty's background of being an orthopedic surgeon, my background in trying to go to Ty for orthopedic surgeries, and because I like wellness, but we kind of morphed into people like yourself who have passions and how they develop these passions and how these passions really fuel their life. So my question to you is, are you an artist? You're a photographer as an art. Do you have any other artistic skills? And what is it about photography that you like as an artist?
Well, I think what appeals to me most about it is that with my photography, I can tell a story. So I'm a storyteller, really. If you ask me what I did, I'm a storyteller. I will tell you a story about people and their lives through the photography, and there's some great ways of doing it. Because one of the things when I sort of ran my business and it was my livelihood, I was photographing families and kids, and indeed Matt's family, which was great fun, And by the way, your dad said he wanted to do another one, so I tell him we should get our act together and do it.
We should. We will. I've got actually the last one you did. My parents here behind me. I brought it downstairs.
It was a great session. I mean, we had such a good time that day. I mean, that's fun. Definitely do it again. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, look at them. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
They are a lovely couple.
Yes, they are.
You know, he says to me, he gives me a call every now and again. He says, Philip, I'm a little short on funds right now. Could we play golf? I need.
That's Gino. That's how he know. That's how you know he loves you.
Yeah, he does that frequently. Yeah.
So, how did you have the courage to make photography your full-time job?
Well, you know, it was. When I look back on it, it was kind of like I didn't really think about it. I just thought, this is what I want to do, and you know, I started. You know, I actually got to a point where after about 5 years in the police, I was doing quite a few of my friends' photography, the kids and all that. And the thing is, I was there to be a policeman in Bermuda. And you don't have an immigration permit to take photographs. So I was one of the local photographers complained that I was, you know, cutting into their business. So I got called up before the police, the commissioner, and he said, you know, you're a good photographer in the police. You might want to decide what you want to do. Would you want to be a photographer out of the police? It was kind of like a veiled threat that was going to get
Wow.
So I thought about it long and hard. I thought, this is a time to get my wife. My wife was from Allentown, Pennsylvania, and she was working in the hospital. And she wasn't, you know, she was homesick, and so we went to we moved to Allentown, and it was a bit out of my. We moved to
wait, you went from outside of you know, where you grew up to Bermuda to Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Well, I was only there 2 weeks. We both decided we were going to go live in Washington. That's how we then live in Washington, so it was good. Yeah. But nothing to do with Allentown, Pennsylvania, but it was a Pennsylvania Dutch community, and it was very hard to break into.
I would think so.
Very closed, and I would just be getting accepted by now. I think, you know, after 50 years,
you would still be a new guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the new guy in town. Yeah.
But wasn't it hard breaking into photography in DC? Weren't there a lot of photographers?
What happened was, there's tons of photographers. It just happened to be that I moved to Alexandria, Virginia. And then Smith's of Bermuda, which was a department store, opened up a store in Alexandria. So I went to the manager and said, look, you know, I got a whole bunch of pictures of Bermuda. And, you know, I said, would you like to have some for your wall? So he bought a whole bunch of photographs. And I did about 30, like 16 by 20 portraits. And that was, while we were doing that, there was a storage space upstairs. And I started doing photographs for this magazine called the Alexandria Port Packet. And they would advertise their clothes, and I did the photographs up there. And I said, "Look, this would make a great studio." So the guy was a guy called Bill Banks, who was the manager of the store, and I said, "This would make a great studio." He said, "Well, let's talk about it." So ended up my first studio was at Smith's of Bermuda, and it was like an endorsement, you know, because these guys, you know, they were an upscale market. And the fact that I had a store in there, that was like an endorsement from them, and that really helped my business get going.
Absolutely.
Shoppers would come through and see my photographs, and I'd get families and children. And it was amazing. In fact, when I was there, John McCain's wife, Cindy, when he was in the Navy, when he came back from being a POW, his wife, he married Cindy, and she came in to arrange a wedding party. She found me in the Yellow Pages because and she comes in. I did a photograph of him in the uniform because he was still in the Navy then, and it was just it was a great session. And I said, "What are you doing?" You know, he was retiring from the Navy. He was congressional liaison for the Navy, and so I did a portrait of the two of them together. I did him in uniform, and that photograph's in the book as well.
Right.
And that was a great relationship, start of a great relationship, because I said, what are you going to do next? He said, I'm going to run for Congress. I said, well, I'll do your photograph for Congress. So it did. And then he ran for Senate. And I did 8 sessions with him altogether. But that was all because I met him in Alexandria, Virginia, out of the Yellow Pages. You know? So,
and I've seen you do it, but the relationship you develop with, you know, before a session, you get them relaxed, because you become part of the family, and it's like the camera's not there. It's like I'm just talking to Philip and just smiling or just sitting this way for Philip. How do you develop that rapport to make that such a comfortable experience for everybody?
Well, I think the first thing is you've got to have complete command and control over your equipment, so you're not thinking about it. So you can actually engage them. Like I'm like talking to, if I'm in a session, I'm talking to people. Tell me stuff in a session that astonishes me sometimes. It's like I cannot believe some of the things that people have said. I've never actually done a book about it, but I think I could only do one kiss and tell book. But some of the stories that people have told me, it's just astonishing, And but it's like you get this rapport. Like we're talking right now. I'm looking at expressions in your face. I could say something to you and just say, but I'll ask you a question. I could see your response to it, and then just as I'm getting that photograph, and I could get about 30 different expressions. And I try to get a really good range because you don't know what the person is going to. I can't always tell exactly what
right.
way they're going to be. But the one thing about it, and I notice you guys have got to do it. You're sitting up straight and you're leaning forward. So when you do that, you don't have a chin. Oh, I got a little bit there, but you
look at that.
You can see my clients in Washington D.C. because they walk around like this all the time because they don't have your chin that way. If you
right.
lean forward, chin up, no chin now. See.
There you go.
You've got the same thing there. You've got it, Matt. Yeah.
See, I'm a model now, Ty.
There you go.
But you do totally take command. I was actually just telling my wife that you and I were talking, and the last time you did all the Waldrons, there must have been, I don't know, 15 of us, 13 of us. But my daughter, and we did in Sherwood, and my daughter Molly was the youngest, and she was 3, and her head was all over the place, and you had like a little orange ball in your hip, and we joke about now. You kept going Molly, over here, Molly, because she's still the same way. We say it to her all the time.
My head, Molly.
That's exactly right.
And I had a squeaker. And that was
that's what it was, a red squeaker. Right?
Yeah, that is the most valuable piece of equipment I've got.
What happens when you are planning on doing a portrait and does the subject ever just want to pose and not chat? I mean, does that happen where they're so strictly business that then you can't get the picture you want?
Well, I usually can chat them up a bit and just talk them into it. I can usually I've had a few really exceptional cases of that rule, but I actually photographed a woman recently. She was a sculptor and a sculptress, and there was having an unveiling, and she didn't know I was doing this photograph. I was doing it for a friend, and she didn't want to be photographed, and that was fine. I just took about 3 or 4 photographs of her, and I said, "Thank you, I've got what I want." And, but it was some people.
Yeah.
Most people want to look good. If they're coming to me for a photograph, it's a collaboration. They want to be. They want to be part of it. They want to be the helpful. And I remember one exceptional one was George Will. And George Will, I'd read a lot of his columns. I really was looking forward to the session. And George Will did not want to do this portrait. It was for the Washington Speakers Bureau. And they told me he's difficult. He doesn't want to do it. He's just do what you can. Just we just need someone to show people what he looks like. It was for the brochure they had on him. And I walked in there and he's sitting at his desk and he was writing, foolscap yellow pad, and I said, "Good morning, Mr. Will." He kind of nodded, and I set up my equipment, and then I said, "Okay, I'm ready for you now. Would you just put your jacket on?" Didn't bring one. So I've got this guy with no jacket. He's got a bow tie on, and everything's one-word answers, and he just was not engaging. And I managed to get him talking about baseball. Not that I know anything about baseball. And I kind of made a segue to Margaret Thatcher. And this is how long ago it was. And then he got a call from the president of Parker Pen Company. And he was complaining to the Parker Pen Company guy that why doesn't America make a pen like Mont Blanc? Because he says, the president of the company said, we have lovely, would you like to send me some samples? He said, yes, I would, And then we just got all in the conversation, and I got him with the hands on his hips, and he was like I just nailed him. It was like from being a disaster to something like that. It's just sometimes you just have to make it
when you're doing a photo shoot. How often do you go, "Oh, I got it right there. That was the picture," or is it usually after when you're like going through the negatives and such?
Well, sometimes sometimes I'm not feeling it, but I'm not letting them know that, I'm like,
right.
I sometimes I'm getting it. I've got to switch this around. I got to really change it. And other times it's just boom, it's there. it was like I did Ruth Bader Ginsburg portrait, and this was in 2000.
How did you meet Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
Well, she lived in the same building as me at Watergate. I lived at Watergate, and she, well, the first meeting was when you live at the Watergate, there's a you have to be
condo
approved.
Board.
Yeah, it's a condo board. Yeah, it's cooperative. Yeah, it's a co-op, so you have to be approved. So my interlocutor that night was Marty Ginsburg, her husband, and he was the only one on the board. And the only other applicant that night was a gentleman called Placido Domingo, who was the opera singer. And so we were sitting there waiting in the room for this interview, and we got talking. I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "Well, I've just been appointed as the artistic director of the Washington National Opera." And I said, "Well, I'm a photographer, and I've done some photographs of the National Symphony Orchestra." And we actually had apartments on the same floor. We're on the 14th floor. So this was the first time we'd met. And he said, "Oh, we should talk about doing photographs of the opera singers." And because of that meeting, I photographed over 500 opera singers.
Oh, my goodness.
And so what happened was Birmingham trumps Domingo alphabetically. So I went in first. And Marty Ginsburg had no interest in me whatsoever. He just wanted to, he says, "Quite honestly, Mr. Birmingham, some of the members of the co-op are a little concerned that having a paparazzi photographer around the hallways of Watergate might not make us very comfortable." And he did it sort of humorous. That's why, the thing is, my public life's very public. I want to live the Watergate, so I want to have a private life myself, so I'm certainly not going to bother him. He said, "That's fine." That was basically the interview. I was in and out in 5 minutes.
That's amazing.
And as I was leaving, Domingo says, "Wait for me." Because you want to continue the conversation. So I thought, well, it'll be 5 minutes. 45 minutes later, he's still in there with Domingo because the Ginsbergs were great opera fans, and they just were fascinated. So this was like he took more of Placido's time.
Yeah, so they like opera more than photography.
Yeah, but it worked out great because
absolutely,
I would see them both at the opera. And we actually talked about doing a session. I just dropped her a note, and I'd seen her in the elevator. We got in the elevator. And she's like 5'3" or something like that. She was pretty, and she'd look at me, and she's like this. And I said, when I saw you in the elevator, you look like you were petrified. And she wrote back to me. She said, "I look up to you, Philip, but not in fear." And I thought it was a great. I mean, she had a way with words.
Absolutely.
And so then we actually did the session, and my daughter flew out from California, for the day. And we were late. We were an hour late for the session. We did it at the Supreme Court, and one of that was there's a police demonstration, and there's these police cops on bikes everywhere. And you couldn't get out. I was in an Uber. I had to get out and walk. And we called her up, and she said, "No, it's fine. I've got nothing else. I've got schedule this afternoon." But I walked in. I was a basket case. I was like, how can I be late? It's only the Watergate to Supreme Court. It was only 15 minutes.
Right.
We went up, the Uber driver took us over into Virginia, so we came back on the 12th Street.
Oh my goodness!
It was a nightmare. Anyway, when we got there, she was so gracious. She said, "Look," and she showed us a stack of books, a stack of files I did. "I have plenty to do. You're fine, so just relax." And then she took us around, gave us a tour of the chambers, and she showed us the places where all the collars were. She had these descent collars, and so she chose one for the session. And I'll move on to tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But we had this. The thing was, she chin was down a little bit like that. I was getting that look like that of the whole session, and I couldn't get, I couldn't get this. I couldn't go and push her chin up like that. So I was just not coming together, and so I realized what I got to do is get on the floor. So I got down on the floor, and the I was shooting right up to her, and she just engaged with me. I knew that was it. It was just like such a powerful shot.
It is. It is. Her hair pulled back so tight. Yeah, there it is.
And I mean, you are in the room with her, talking to her, and it's just magic. It was.
That's incredible.
And there's probably about there's a number of other shots that are pretty, but that was like just spectacular. And then once I published a book, I got a call from the Postal Service, the United States Postal Service, and they said, we would want to consider this photograph for a stamp, to make a stamp out of it. So what they did was they made 32 million postage stamps out of it. I said, okay, 1 cent each. That's a good deal. It didn't work that way, but it was. I mean, it was. But she was. She was just very engaging and.
Well, I think you're very engaging, so I'm sure that helps your process, whether it be Placido or Ruth Bader Ginsburg or Ty. I think that helps all the way around.
If I smile at somebody, they don't smile back, I'm dead.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
My question is, how you've been doing this for a long time. So originally you had to develop your own film. You might have had no idea what kind of shot you were getting. And now I guess you get instant feedback. You're like, Gene Waldron wants his family done. I'm a little worried about making his older son look good. But now you can look at it. Whereas before you were stressed and you were like, Gino, we probably should hire an actor to play your older son.
It was a challenge.
But was it nerve-wracking, waiting for the photos to develop?
My analogy was this. It's like, imagine being a piano player, and you go to the piano and you play your music and no sound comes out. And at the end of your session, you just go to the back of the piano and you take a cartridge out and you send it to Kodak for development, and they send you back your music. That's what it was like being a photographer. You were making an educated guess about how it was going to turn out. And now you just take a picture, look at the back of the camera, and it's there, But I don't show the clients that. I don't let them see. I said, no, you can't see it. No, this is all part of the mystery and the mystique. Because if you got people looking at it, you can say, oh, I don't like my hair and that one, I don't like that. You lose control. So it's a great thing to have, to be able. I used to love the process of Polaroids. I used to collect all the Polaroids. I always do a Polaroid in a session. I'd go in there and I'd make a big fuss about it, and and you'd rub it in your jacket to warm it up and keep it going. Then you look at it. Oh, that was a way of engaging them. And then I found other ways, But it's always about a question of getting them involved and getting them sort of like they're part of the process. And it was just really, that's the joy of it. And I'm never tired of it. I've always meeting new people. I will do this as long as I possibly can, because it's always fascinating. I've met people that told me stories that nobody else. I watch some TV anchors and all that with their sort of their style and all that, and it's got to be so quick. They've got that 15-second bite they've got to get, But I'm sometimes with it for an hour. I usually ask for 15 minutes, but I can spin it into an hour pretty easily.
Right.
But don't tell me when I said that. Okay.
Does it get harder the bigger the group?
Oh yeah.
I'm wondering, one person seems like it'd be easy, but like a husband and wife, what if they're fighting that day? And then the bigger 15 people would be hard.
Yeah, the Waldrons are awful.
Waldrons are awful. Yeah. I mean, there's that short French woman. She's really bossy.
She was tough, yeah.
Well, the short women like that, she gets real bossy.
I tell you what, the one thing about it is, I kind of found this out after a couple of years doing it. Was that people who go to a photographer and have their families photographed, pretty nice people. They're doing it because they love the family.
Right.
Because they hate each other and having going through a divorce or fighting. It's just they are they do it because they love each other. And I tell you, one of the things I've noticed, that whenever there's a big group, the boys tend to stand near mom, and the girls go near dad. It's not always the same, but there's a good rule of thumb. So I always photograph them that way, because that's the natural thing. I'll see. As we're talking and chatting around, I'm teasing the kids and all that kind of thing, one of the biggest problems, I can get any kid to look at the camera, but it's the adults who don't have the sense to look at me instead of looking at they're looking at the
kid. Right.
So I got to try and get everybody, but I can see it. And I use a tripod, not because the camera needs a shutter speed. I use it so that I can look up just over the camera. You can't tell in the photograph that they're not looking at the camera. If you're looking at a sort of a chunk of glass and steel, you're going to be there's no animation. But if you're looking at me and I'm saying, hey, and I'm doing something to
the squeaker.
You can't tell the angle is the same, so it's like you're looking at the camera. So that was the key. That's why I'm the tripod. I focus and look at it, and I go, hello. And you try that at a party. If you've got a camera and just lower the camera and just look at the group, and you'll see the response is so different, because that's one of my trade secrets, though. You just got that one.
Okay, we got that one for free.
Yeah, that's good to know. We'll pass that on to Klepper.
Do you have a group of people that were like stick out in your mind as they were your favorite or they were the most fun?
Well, so
or a person, not just a group of person.
I get asked, who's the favorite person you photographed, and I will reply, being a smart ass, I'll say, the one I'm with at the time.
Yeah,
and it's true, because there's nothing more important than who you're with. I don't take any. When I was in the studio, I'd never take an interruption. I would never take a phone call. I was with them, and I was focused with them, and it was just totally sort of like we were engaged, and there was nothing that was going to disturb us, and that's important of it. You've got this rap, and you want to keep it, but that's the fun part of it.
Yeah, it's like someone asking us who our favorite guest was, or our favorite guest is Philip Bermingham.
Yeah, and then Mike Broomfield's second.
Yeah. Well, we're still counting votes. He's up there, but not second's going to be a stretch.
It is. I learned more about Broomfield from that podcast.
That was great. That was great.
I've heard that story about the goose going off the bridge. So Mike's a funny guy. He's a great guy.
So good. And the great thing is, now that we have it, we have it recorded, he never needs to tell it again. So we can just play that. So
and hopefully he won't.
That's our clip. We got it right there. So speaking of Michael and the UK, how did you get involved with the royal family?
Well, I was very fortunate to. First of all, quick story. I got a copy of the Washington Dossier magazine, and it was the ambassador's edition. Every ambassador in this looked like a mugshot, a police mugshot, and I know about police mugshots. I'm good at profiles, and this was like all they needed was the little sort of
number
on the chest. And so I went to the magazine editor, and I said, look, why don't we do? I'll send a letter to all the ambassadors, all the embassies. I'll do the photographs. I'll provide you with a black and white glossy for the magazine, or color, whatever you want. And then any sales I make the ambassadors, they're mine. And he said, okay. And he sent the letters out. And at the time, there was 132 ambassadors who had credentials in Washington. And I managed in a period of 3 months to get 126 of them. Yeah. And it was an amazing experience. This is where I got my 10,000 hours in photography. Yeah. I mean, it really was like I just, the smaller the country, the more difficult they were to get. And the ambassador was always on the top floor of a 5-story, townhouse. And I had to, get my equipment.
Lug all your stuff up.
I learned how to pack my gear. I mean, I was every time I got to a door, I had to take all the things off the trolley. And then after about 10 sessions, I realized, if I just put it long ways, stuff like that, you learn
yeah, that's on-the-job training. Yep.
And I did the British ambassador, who was Sir Anthony Ackland, and he was his wife had died about 4 years earlier, and he was the foreign secretary. And Mrs. Thatcher said, "Who do you recommend for the British ambassador as British ambassador?" That's who chose the appointments. And so, with respect, ma'am, but myself. And so he got the job by asking for it. And when he came out, he was single. And every social hostess in Washington wanted the ambassador, and they're all trying to fix him up. But he was already taken. He'd met a woman in England, Jenny, who came out, and I did their portrait. And I got to, I did his portrait first, and then I did the two of them. And then they said, where should we? We think we're going to Bermuda for our honeymoon. Where would you go? And so I said Cambridge Beaches. At the time, was like the place to be. And so they ended up going to Cambridge Beaches. And when they came back, I was opening my new studio in McLean. So Jenny did the ribbon cutting for me. And I just said, anything you need any help in, photography at the embassy, just let me know. And then I heard the Queen and Prince Philip were coming. So I called up the press secretary, and I told him, I'd be happy to help with the royal visit. And I told the ambassador secretary, I told the Lady Ackland's secretary, and I called up the ambassador. And somebody else I called up as well. But apparently there was a meeting took place when they were preparing for the thing. They said do we have a house photographer? And Jenny said, "Oh, Philip would be interested to know that." And everybody in that room had an experience where I said I wanted to do it, and I got the job.
There you go.
The press secretary called me up and says, "Philip, would you just check your diary to see what you're doing on the 15th of May?" And we'd like you to come to the embassy and photograph the ambassadors with all the Commonwealth ambassadors. And then the following night, you come and photograph President and Mrs. Bush with.
That picture's in the book. Yeah.
I'm going. I'm trying to, sort of not lose my.
Right.
Let me just check my diary. So
you made room.
I said, "Oh yes, we can make that happen." And,
yeah.
I actually did have a portrait session that afternoon, and it was like, oh my God! And this was quite a prominent client as well. I managed to pull it off. It was like it was just a nightmare though. But anyway, that was a fantastic session. That was one probably session of a lifetime, really.
Did you ever get nervous before any of these sessions?
I get nervous every session.
Besides this one, besides the one with Ty and I.
Every session, yeah. Well, I was nervous. You should have seen me. I was looking around. I couldn't get online. I couldn't get my thing.
It probably ruined your golf game knowing this was happening.
I have butterflies. And I think that the technique is to teach the butterflies to fly in formation. I think that's it. If I don't get butterflies, I'm not going to do it a good job. Yeah.
So how do you teach the butterflies to fly in formation? Like, how do you stay focused even though you're nervous?
Well, I always prepare equipment and everything ahead of time. I just make sure that I'm ready for any eventuality. I have a plan of what I'm going to do. It never happens that way, but at least I've got a fallback plan.
Right.
I see something that is I like, and I'll go for that as well. And some of the things sometimes I've got a whole studio set up with lights and everything like that. And then I don't use them, and it's just, I just.
But they're there if you need them.
Change, yeah. I always take lights with me just in case, But
and you look cooler. It looks more professional too, just to have them.
But it gets in the way. It gets in the way. But I actually did a session about a month ago, which is probably one of the best sessions I've ever done, and I didn't use any lights at all, and it was just so, the colors, everything was fantastic, The cameras now are fantastic.
Right. I mean, that's got to be a game changer for your business.
Well, when I used to use a Hasselblad, which is 2.25 format camera, and I was like on a mountaintop with my tripod, looking down on all these wannabe photographers with their 35s and all that. And the iPhone has been it's a level playing field. You can get great photographs of your kids now. I mean, kids photography. I'm not really. It's not something I want to do anymore. If somebody asks me, really, please, well, let me do it, I'd do it. But it's like I'd rather have somebody I can talk to and have a great conversation with. And
back to the royal family. You don't have to talk about Meghan Markle or the prince or anything, but has anyone from the royal family ever turned you down?
A lot of them. Princess Anne, who I met one night at a party at the British Embassy, I just said, ma'am, you're probably one of the few members of the family I haven't photographed. And she goes, well, Philip, if you don't mind, I'd rather keep it that way.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that great?
She was so my rejection was very graciously done.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
Now, do you ever get requested to do animals and landscapes and things like that?
Yeah, I do. I actually, we had my staff and I one time made a comment that the studio's going to the dogs, because we had this whole series of ladies who wanted their dogs photographed.
Huh.
And it was, from a business standpoint, it was something which was just, oh yeah, we'll do that because these ladies love their dogs and
right.
We're willing to have them immortalized, So, and I like doing animals. Yeah, it was great. I just I thoroughly enjoyed that aspect of it.
So you can't talk to the animal. How do you get the
animal?
I do
talk to the animal.
He can talk. He talks to Peter.
The dog whisperer.
He talks to my father. I mean, come on. He can talk to animals.
Again, my squeaker.
That's right. I bet that's right.
And if you want to get the ears up on a horse, you just have that squeaker.
Okay.
The ears go, and all these questions like, how did you do that? And I've spooked a few animals in my time, but but it's a very effective way of doing it. And you know, you know what to do to get them to. One of the problems is when people want to do their dog in the family portrait, that's when it's a challenge. So I say this is not guaranteed. This is definitely not guaranteed because you don't want to make the whole thing about the dog, you know. But we can
especially
use
there's dogs and kids. That seems like pretty tough.
Well, somebody said to me, somebody asked me, what kind of photography do you do? And I said, I'm a wildlife photographer. I photograph children and dogs.
That's
and
right.
it's you know, it kind of can be crazy.
So, Philip, we've kept you for a long time, but you've been very gracious. But we also like to ask some fun questions of our guests, just to kind of get to better, know them even better. And so, I know what Ty's going to ask.
No,
What's that?
I got it.
That's right.
I got a new question.
All right, Ty, go first.
So, for some people, photography is their hobby. You've made photography your full-time job. What are your hobbies?
What are my hobbies?
Yeah.
Well, I'm really into philosophy.
Okay.
I love that. I'm a golfer. I'm obsessed with golf, and I've got my handicap down quite a bit, and I'm doing it more for. It is a great way. One of my mottos is to spend the daylight hours outdoors. So that's a good 5 hours there with the golf game. And I try to go for a walk as well. So with a golf game and this walk in Bermuda, you can see the point right behind my head. There's a point there takes about an hour and 40 minutes there and back, and it's about 11,000 steps. So 16,000 for golf. So you get 27,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
With that walk, and that's one of the things I'm really into.
And to touch on
I have a thing every day. I have a one line. What can I do to improve myself today?
There you go.
Yeah. It's just one line. I put the date on it, and it's one line. And sometimes I miss a day, but it's like, and you can go back and say, oh yeah, I did that, and it really is helpful. If you just do one thing better every day, it's really good. That's one of the things.
Is it more like keep your head down and follow through with your wedge shots, or
I've got a separate one for golf.
Okay,
I'm talking about my life generally.
Your philosophy.
Just like what I'll do is I've always, when I've done a portrait session of someone of note, I've always written down the comments, and because you forget them so quickly, and I go back and look at them and go, oh my God, I don't remember that. And this is 4 or 5 weeks later, so a couple of years later, you think, oh my gosh, that
makes it real again. Yep.
Yeah, it does. And I wish I'd done it more assiduously. I missed a few of them, but I work on it now.
So with philosophy, if somebody listening was like, oh, I'm starting to get into philosophy, what would be your top books to recommend or top philosophers to look into?
Well, okay, I'll tell you, I do have a journey on this, and one is a guy called Derren Brown, and he wrote the book. It's a fabulous book. It's called Tricks of the Mind. Tricks of the Mind. Okay. They are the trick of the mind was I can remember it. But the book was about how he was. He could do conjuring tricks. He could do all sorts of, make you believe. But what he did was he exposed charlatans and frauds for what they were, and he was brilliant. He just had a way of. He has a BBC show. And this book was just filled with so many anecdotes about how there's so many tricksters and con men out there. And I read in there's another. He recommended somebody else. He recommended Richard Dawkins, who wrote The Selfish Gene.
Yeah.
And I actually went to Antarctica in January with Richard Dawkins on a cruise ship. The Swan Hellenic Vega ship, and we did 8 shore landings. I did a portrait of it, but there's a whole series of books that I followed in philosophy. I met Christopher Hitchens, and
right.
There was a.
Did you take pictures of Christopher?
I did. I never did Christopher Hitchens. No. I did do Richard Dawkins, and I'm trying to think. There was a guy in England who I went to see in London. I wanted to go to. Do a 4-year course. I went to do a course at his university, and Anthony, just blanking his name now, but it turned out I couldn't make it. They wanted a 4-year commitment, and I didn't.
Right.
That was a bit at my age. It was a little
So,
time to.
so then, I guess then I'm going to take Ty's normal question. Your dream foursome, and where are you playing?
Same. Oh, dream foursome. Oh my God! Wow.
Living, dead, of note. Whomever you want.
Well, this golf trip, is it? Am I having a golf round here? What?
Yeah.
Fivesome. A fivesome.
There you go.
Yeah, I think Hitchens be one of them. I've done Dawkins' dinner several times, so I don't need him again. What else?
Carl Weathers, please.
Oh no, I'd have a beer with him, But this has got to be this. This is the ultimate dinner, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
The ultimate. Yeah,
we're doing it. We're doing it. Oh God! See, I've got rid of a lot of them. I've photographed a lot of them. So I would say, I would say one of the most remarkable women was actually the Queen, and I saw her in a different way than most people do.
I'm sure you did.
I probably had about 7 or 8, sessions with her over the years. I actually photographed her in Bermuda when I was a police officer, and she had a royal visit here in 1970. She came in 76. She was on the way to the bicentennial, but she also came about 73 as well, 74. And I just followed her everywhere she went, So it was just, I don't know where she gets the energy from to do that. I was exhausted. I mean, I was like, taking all these, I was going to bed every night, absolutely wiped out. And she was just, all these dinners and making nice to everybody.
Just kept going.
And these photographs now, I've got all the photographs I took when I was in Bermuda in 1973. And so I've got some great shots of her there.
I'm sure.
And then I got the photographs at the embassy, and and I photographed Prince Philip several times, and he could be a real charmer, or he could be really difficult.
Depending.
And like that night he was terrible. The night that I did his portrait there, he didn't want to do it, And another one, and I said, "Sir, could you put your hand in the back of the chair?" This was the British Embassy in the library, and this, and it had to be. They put these chairs with Elizabeth Regina ER on the back of the chair, and so they wanted to know the photo. They want to make sure the photograph was coming from the embassy and not from the
right.
Unions. So I was considered user friendly, so it was great. And anyway, I said, "Would you put your hand on the back of the chair?" And he goes, "No." I said, "Would you put your hand in your pocket?" And he goes, "No." I said, "Would you sit in the chair?" And he goes, "No." I'm dying now. There's about 46 nervous guys there. I'm dying. And the Queen, as you can see in the photograph, she's got holding a handbag. And I said, "Ma'am, could you put the handbag down?" And she kind of grinned a little bit. She goes, "No." And I don't know where this came from, but I said, "Ma'am, I'm so pleased to see that your dress is nicely pressed, because I had a dream the other night that I'd have to iron your dress." Oh, wow. And I got it. And it was like, I went from being like, get in the water to just get in the photograph, and it was magical moment.
Is there anyone of note that you would really like to take their picture of? I mean, I would think with you, as you said earlier, it's a collaborative process between the two of you. Have you ever solicited anyone to take their photo?
Yeah, I've asked certain people.
Okay, all right. You can take ours. Fine.
Sorry. So
you can take ours. I know. I see you beating around the bush.
Your secretary didn't tell you we got it on the books already. Oh,
all right, great.
You can delegate authority well. I can do that.
But you have asked people to do a session.
Yeah, I've asked. What I would like to, what I'm doing right now. I don't want to. I don't sort of let the cat out of the bag too. I've approached several people about living. I believe my job is to record the times that we live in. That's my driving force, and it's like there are some people that I don't really want to photograph, but I'm going to photograph them anyway. But there's some people I really want to photograph because I think they make a difference, and those are the ones that I'm working on this. It's not going as quickly as I like because. I'm playing a lot of golf, so it kind of gets in the way a bit, But there's some people I've just done sessions with and just really they've been very gracious about it and giving me their time. And
I'm excited to see those. That's great.
That's my next book, And
will you be in DC at all this summer, or
I'm heading back for a week, just a weekend. Weekend after next, I'm going to be. I've got a place in Middleburg, which I've spent a lot of time in Middleburg recently. So I've got my office set up there now because I've got so many negatives. I had them in the basement at Watergate, and it was kind of damp and dark and just nasty. And now they're all out. I'm bringing them to life again. I've got several people who I've photographed their families for years, and they want to do they want to really sort of go into them and just get them updated and just
fun.
See what they got, because I found when I did that book, I just went through my files, and there was Jerome Powell was one of them. I don't remember taking the photograph. I showed him the portrait in the book, and he didn't remember the photograph either. Yeah. No, it was he was with the Carlisle group at the time, and but there was some other people that I kept a list of everyone's name and the number and where they were filed. So this was a great little way of finding things, and
that's amazing.
They're just the ones that came up with. It was quite interesting. I
bet. Well, if you're up this summer, we will get Gino out on at the tree, and you and I can gang up on him. Thank you, Ty. You got anything?
No, this was great. I am curious. Where's the most remote place you have traveled to photograph somebody?
Ooh,
Antarctica's got to be it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is like. Have you been there?
I have not. I'm reading a book about it right now, called Endurance.
Shackleton. The Shackleton book. Yeah, that's a great book. There.
Yeah.
That's like. I mean, I learned all of it, about this when I was a kid. This Scottish tradition and all that. But going there is like unbelievable. It was truly. I had no idea of what I was getting into, and I went to Buenos Aires and had a couple of days there, and then flew down to a charter to Ushuaia, and then took a 2-day cruise in the Drake Passage, which was like 30-foot seas, and you were hanging onto the side of the boat there, and it was a real sort of, it was an expedition. There was 13 scientists on it, and so there was a geologist and an ornithologist, and there was everything was covered, and they gave these lectures, and when we were on the ship, I was the only one sitting in the lecture. Everyone was doing it from their rooms. It was like going through a crazy thing to get there. But the actual going ashore on these trips, you have wet landings, so you'd have all the waterproof gear, and you get into the water, and then you walk out, and then you go through the snow, and it was amazing. You never saw another person. There was about 3 days into it, I was thinking, there's another lens I'd like to have with me here. I wonder if I can get FedEx to fly it down. And then I realized, there's no way that FedEx is going to take less than 2 weeks.
Right.
You realize how remote you are. You didn't see a single billboard or sign or building.
That's eerie.
Or the ship.
Yeah.
And that was like that was truly a remarkable situation that it wasn't even on my bucket list. It just came up out of the blue, and I just jumped on it and went.
And when you're on a trip like that, are you taking pictures the whole time?
I took 17,000 photographs.
Yeah. Oh my!
What I did was I got 2 new cameras that I hadn't used before, and 3 lenses. So it was a way of practicing without having to commitment to a client and all that. But I ended up doing some great photographs there, and it was one of the things was this camera takes 30 photographs a second in the
oh my goodness
in the speed mode. So if you're doing birds, it's fantastic with that. This is a tracking device. It locks on to the subject and will follow the subject, and you can do 30. You can run out of disk space pretty quickly.
I bet.
Yeah. So I asked you before, but we got on to something else. Is that your favorite landscape you've ever photographed, or do you have a top landscape?
Well, I'm working on a book on Maine right now. I've got a place in Maine in Biddeford Pool, and I've been going there since 1989. Yeah, well, it's fantastic. It's such a sense of community there.
Absolutely.
I have more of a community in Biddeford Pool, Maine, and Bermuda than I do in DC, because everyone's in such a hurry in DC. There's not like, when you go to the summer in Maine and the winter in Bermuda, and so I have more, sort of community activities in those two places than I do.
That's how Ty and I know each other from Sherwood, where you came down
right.
I
can
see
it's
the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And that community is very special, and it just fuels everything else in your life, I think.
Yeah.
As long as you can find it.
You're not really retired. Like you're still doing your thing.
Yeah. I'm probably doing about 30 sessions a year now. So that's like, it's one every other week kind of thing, and sometimes I'll do I'll do like 10 in a week, something like that. And it's all, a group that's connected or something like that. But it's still fun. And it's, my problem is I probably take too many photographs. Editing is one of the hardest things I do.
Yeah.
My wife, Lisa, she is pretty good at, she can say no to them. I can't say no. Killing your babies is a hard thing to do, and that's what they call it when you nix their photograph. It's killing your baby, and but she can do it for me, so it's great.
That's good. It's good teamwork.
And what recommendation would you have for people Matt and my age, like as we start getting towards that age where people retire? What would you say? Would you say to keep going?
Why would you? What are you retiring from?
Nothing right now.
No, I mean,
I'm just starting in the podcasting world.
Yeah. Well, you can do that forever. I mean, what do you do?
That's the plan.
You can podcast forever. That's. No, I've got
I love that attitude, though. Why would you retire? Find something you love to do, so you don't want to retire.
That's right. It really is. It's like I sometimes I do get sort of like I do sort of put tremendous effort into it. So when I finish a session, I am like on a high, and then I got to come down, and then I sleep well that night. And then it's like I did do. It's about 4 years ago now. There was a family down here who I'd photographed the parents' wedding. I called them my 4 weddings and a funeral family because I did them 4 of the daughters' weddings. There was one left, and I've been to the dad's funeral, and it was, I mean, in the nicest way.
Absolutely.
I was there for the good times and bad times. It was a real special family to me, and they were just. But it was the daughter said, "Would I do her wedding?" And I thought, "Oh my God, and it was a 7-day event. So I brought my daughter in and my assistant in. This was in Bermuda, and I got immigration permission because I don't want to be taking somebody's job away, but we got the permits for that, and it was 7 events in a row. An arrival party, every party you could possibly imagine. They go to it, and that was probably the most wedding photographs I ever took in my life. And
fantastic.
It was amazing, but that was.
And is your daughter one of your assistants?
Well, she is a great photographer. She is a screenwriter in Hollywood, and so is her husband. And they've got a 2.5-year-old baby, and so they come to Maine. The last 2 years, they come to Maine and had a fabulous time out there. 5 months with my granddaughter, and my daughter. So it's great.
Oh, wow, that's great.
That's fun, Phil. I bet. Well, if you're up this summer, we will get Gino out on at the tree, and you and I can gang up on him.
Yeah. We have had some fun times together, And your mum's okay too, She's a pretty good sport. Yeah. Well, all the best. I wish him all the best.
Thanks so much. Enjoy your lovely evening behind you.
Thank you.
We'll definitely be talking more.
Yeah. It's getting dark.
This has been. What's that?
It's getting dark in Bermuda.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.